Sup VC, Bobby B here. It's time for my annual list of the top albums, or my favorite albums of 2020. We're into a new year now. I hope everybody had a great 2020. It was a challenging year, I know. And, 2021, it's going to take a while, I'm sure, before things change too much, but I hope you're all doing reasonably well, considering. I know it's not an easy time. Pardon me. Do we need another year-end list? Well, probably not, but if my year-end list was the same as everybody else's, then maybe I probably wouldn't bother sharing it. But I know that I really enjoy looking at lists that are unique, because it just introduces me to stuff that I haven't heard before. So I thought I'd take the opportunity to share the albums that I really enjoyed this year. There will be stuff you've heard of here. It's not all, it's not eccentric just for eccentricity's sake. Actually, before I dive in, I'll just address something that Chris over at Dixieland Farms mentioned in one of his videos. He did a video, I think it was about Procol Harum and Jethro Tull. It was a great video. I always enjoy his videos. They're informative and very funny as well. But Chris, he kind of criticized, mildly criticized people who just kind of show eclectic stuff all the time and who never show things that are popular. And he's like, you don't have to be eclectic to show stuff. You don't have to get stuff that nobody's ever heard of. And in theory, I agree with him. And I'm sure there's people out there who do that just to show off. I can only speak for myself, and all I know is that I don't dislike popular music just because it's popular. But at the same time, if I'm introduced to a lot of music, and a perfect example is the Taylor Swift, her releases last year. There were a couple. I haven't heard the second one, but I heard the first one, and it was a good folk album. But I've heard a lot of good folk albums, and if I'm going to immerse myself in one, I'm generally going to choose the one that's less popular, just because I feel like if I'm going to support someone, I'll support someone who could use my support. So while it's true some of those popular albums, upon repeated listenings, may grow to be favorites, I find a lot of the unpopular albums, upon repeated listenings, have the same effect. And so if I can support someone that needs it a little bit more, that's what I'll do. But I don't, if a popular release hits me right away, then I'm going to spend the time with it. And the fact that it's popular isn't going to dissuade me from that. So, and there are a couple of those on this list too. But I think by and large, there's a lot of interesting things here. So, and just one more thing. So my list this year, it's a little bit unique. I know over the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a few more instrumental albums than usual. That's just kind of where I've been leaning. So this year, there's no exception. Maybe half of the albums here are instrumental. I also know the anxieties of 2020 definitely affected my listening habits this year, and my need to chill out resulted in some mellower stuff. There's actually, I would say, about 4 albums on this list that could kind of fall in the ambient-ish category. I don't see a lot of those on other people's lists, so that might be a little unique too. But anyway, so here we go. These are my 30 favorite albums of the year. The ones I have on vinyl, I'll show you. The ones that I don't, I'll do the fancy little poop and show the whatever, the fake image beside my head grapes. Okay, number 30, Flaming Lips, American Head. This is, I haven't really spent a lot of time with the Flaming Lips in well over probably a decade at this point. I think the last album I really loved by them was At War with the Mystics, and then they just kind of lost me, or I just lost interest, or just kind of stopped following them. So this was a nice surprise. American Head kind of went back to that sound, but it still sounded fresh and new for me. I've only listened to it a couple of times, so I don't know if it would kind of get better with repeat listenings or not, but we'll see. But this one, it doesn't quite reach the heights of their turn-of-the-century classics, but it's definitely their best album since then, for me anyways. Flaming Lips, American Head at number 30. Number 29, I do have this one on vinyl. It's from a band from Halifax called Dog Day, and this is their I think it's their fifth album called Present. You know, just they went on a bit of a hiatus. They haven't released an album for 7 years, but I really did enjoy their albums early on. I don't know, kind of jangly, sort of post-punk pop music, jangle pop or power pop, I guess. I don't know, what can you compare them to? I mean, I not in the vocals or even in the lyrical content as such, but some of the music reminds me a bit of the upbeat, some of the Cure's more upbeat stuff. Do you remember a band in the early 2000s, or the mid to late aughts, The Pains of Being Pure at Heart? I hear a bit of that, so there is a touch of the shoegaze in their music. Anyways, this is just another solid collection of catchy, jangly post-punk pop songs that I really enjoyed. Dog Day with Presence at number 29. Is this on colored vinyl or anything? Yeah, it is. It's on blue-ish vinyl. Blue swirl see-through vinyl, number 29. Number 28 is another band that's kind of had a bit of a return. It's another Canadian band called Kestrels. Their album is entitled Dream or Don't Dream. It's nice to have these guys back again. Also, shoegazy, power pop music. Jay Mascis from Dinosaur Jr. Plays guitar on a few of the cuts from their albums, and the Dinosaur Jr. influence is very apparent on that album. So that's my number 28. Number 27 is a band called Horse Lords, and the album is called The Common Task. You know, experimental rock music. It's a little bit psyche, a little bit krauty. It's definitely a unique musical experience, but it's one that upon repeat listenings I found more and more enjoyable, and it really kind of sucked me in. So experimental psych kraut rock music that isn't really either of those. How's that for a description? Number 26, Garcia Peoples, a band I've mentioned on my channel before. Obviously, their name is Garcia Peoples, kind of tells you who they're influenced by a little bit. There's definitely a bit of Grateful Dead in their music. I know when their live sets get a bit jammy. Some of their albums do too. They released an album last year that was pretty jammy. But their album this year, it's entitled Nightcap at Wit's End. This New Jersey band, they set aside their jamminess this time to concentrate a bit more on kind of concise blasts of psych. You know, resembling, you know, bands like Love or The Small Faces a little bit. So it's a bit of a throwback, but it sounds amazing. That album I ordered it, and it should be coming in the mail at some point. I don't know when, but we'll see when that shows up. Number 25 is a guy that's showed up on my lists many times, Destroyer, Dan Bahar. He was in the New Pornographers and other bands and other acts as well. But his latest album, Have We Met? As usual, Dan Bahar, if you're not familiar with Destroyer's music, his lyrics are very, very stream of consciousness. I have no idea what he's talking about ever, but I love listening to it. And I think I heard he once said that you know, his method of songwriting is to take the most unpoetic lyrics you can and make them sound beautiful, and he does that all the time. He does that repeatedly. You know, he released one of my favorite albums of the last decade called Kaput. He released another great album earlier in the decade called Destroyer's Rubies. This one's great, Have We Met? You know, his stream of consciousness ramblings set to the slickest of sophistopop grooves bordering on yacht rock a little bit sometimes. Anyway, sounds really cool. It's great. That's my number 25 album of the year. Number 24 is this one. I've shown it on my channel before. It's an act known as Cola Wars but that's actually Gregory McDonald, who's the touring keyboard player for Sloan. Sloan are the greatest band in the world. That's a discussion for another time, but you know, every time I get the opportunity to promote that, I do. If anyways, I don't want to go off on a tangent. If you believe that the Beatles are the greatest band of all time, then there's a very strong argument to be made that Sloan is the greatest band in the world right now. Anyways, we'll discuss that another time. And this sounds nothing like Sloan or the Beatles or anything. This is an electronic ambient album by the keyboard player, Gregory McDonald. You know, actually, I liked this album right away, but I actually found myself craving it as 2020 rolled along. And as I mentioned, I think a lot of that had to do with my kind of state of mind over the course of the year. So it's his foray into minimalist, ambient, synthy, space rock. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful, hypnotizing album. So that's Cola Wars, the self-titled album by Cola Wars, at number 24. At number 23 is jazz trumpeter, the latest release by jazz trumpeter and composer Ambrose Akinmusire. The album's called On the Tender Spot of Every Calloused Moment. I don't know a lot about his stuff, but he is very well regarded in the jazz community. This album, it's a more concise and subdued and you know, simplistic approach to jazz than some of his other releases, but it still sounds huge to me and socially and emotionally engaging. It's a beautiful, beautiful album. That's Ambrose Akinmusire, On the Tender Spot of Every Callous Moment, at number 23. Number 22 is one that I think, you know, as I've listened to it more, I think it would climb even higher on the album. It's by a Canadian artist named Zane, and the album is called Bleached Waves. I really hope more and more people discover this one in the years ahead. It's, you know, he's an Aboriginal artist who's diving into shoegaze music. So it's a very unique amalgam of shoegaze and traditional First Nations music. There really isn't anything else sounding like this right now. Like when you first put it on, you'll definitely hear the My Bloody Valentine kind of right away. But as it continues on, it's just got this real unique sound to it, and it's just such a beautiful, beautiful album that just seems to grow better and better the more I listen to it. So if you take away one recommendation today, I would highly recommend Bleached Waves by Zane. At number 21 is this album here. It's the last concert I saw before COVID turned the world into hot poop. And it's this band here, Post Animal, from Chicago. Are they from Chicago? Actually, I shouldn't say that because I don't know if that's true. Anyways, what I meant to say is that the Chicago Tribune described the band as if Tame Impala listened to a lot of Black Sabbath and were signed to Elephant Six. I think that's a very, very accurate description of this band. So, the album, is called Forward Motion Goddessy. I don't think it's as good as their last album, but it's still very, very good. Firmly rooted in psych, but variety is the biggest selling point here. Like, there are some songs that kind of remind me of 70s bands like Badfinger and Paul McCartney and Wings and stuff like that. Yeah, and then there's other things that sound like, you know, like Black Sabbath or Tame Impala. You know, it's a very, very, very unique sound, and thankfully they do kind of dive into to different types of music as well. So that's my number 21 album of the year. Number 20 is a band that's garnered a lot of attention over the last few years. Heim, three sisters that from LA who released a couple of really, really good albums that got a lot of critical acclaim, but they didn't really hit me on on more than just kind of a surface level in the past. But their new album, Women in Music Part 3, I feel it's their most adventurous album so far. And although it's still firmly rooted in, you know, kind of catchy, you know, indie pop music, I find this album dips into several different genres, making for a more varied experience. There's a beautiful song on that album. The title of the song escapes me right now, but you know, it's like, it sounds like a lost Joni Mitchell classic. And then there's other songs that are kind of have the 80s production of almost a Michael Jackson album or something, you know. And then there's, you know, great indie pop. Anyways, these are very solid songs. I love that album. Women in Music Part 3 by Heim is at number 20. Number 19 is this one here, The Third Mind. Kind of a psychedelic, a psych rock sort of super group of sorts. Dave Alvin, who was in, I mean, his primary band was the Blasters, but he's done some stints in X and the Knitters. He set out to form a super group that would be capable of making music the way that Miles Davis and his band did on Bitches Brew. And so he assembled a band that consists of David Immergluck, Victor Krummenacher, Michael Jerome, Jesse Sykes is on here. These are all, you know, those are all from many different bands as well. And this is primarily a covers album, which normally I wouldn't be into, but the covers that they choose are very unique. The Journey in Satchidananda, which is an Alice Coltrane song. The Dolphins, which I believe is The Dolphins is a Fred Neil song. Morning Dew is a Bonnie Robson song, but the Grateful Dead were the ones who did a popular version of that. The highlight of the album is their cover of East West, which was a Paul Butterfield blues band did a very popular version of that. The album closes with Rocky Erickson's Reverberation. And there is one original cut on here, Claudia Cardinal. Anyways, it is a jam, instrumental, you know, psychedelic jam rock, but it's a beautiful, beautiful sounding album that I really, really enjoy. So that's The Third Mind, self-titled, at number 19. Number 18 is the latest project by Shabaka Hutchings, Shabaka and the Ancestors. It's entitled We Are Sent Here by History. Shabaka Hutchings is on a roll after great work with Sons of Kemet and The Comet is Coming, which was my number one album of last year. He does it again with this release. It's steeped in obviously jazz music, but also kind of South African styles as well. It's a remarkable album, and if you liked those other projects, you'd like this as well. Number 17 is an album entitled Hone, H-O-N-N-E. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. It's by ambient music legend David Cordero, and it's inspired by his first trip to Japan. Here he creates an enthralling soundscape designed to evoke the landscapes, sounds, and cultures of the area in Japan. And again, 2020 ambient music was what I was turning to a lot of this year, and it really is a beautiful album that kind of calmed my nerves and made me feel good. So that's at number 17. Number 16 is the sophomore release by collective named Trees Speak, and the album is called Ohms. This is strange stuff. This is they're an avant-garde collective. This album boldly combines the sounds of classic krautrock with post-punk, neo-psychedelia. You know, if for psych fans, you know, I think this would speak to them especially. It is primarily a psych rock album, but it does have elements of those other things as well. Number 15, Nicholas Jar's second release I think it's his second release under the moniker Against All Logic. Again, kind of a collection of songs from 2017 to 2019. That's the name of the album. Just like his last album, which was a collection of songs, I believe, from 2011 to 2017 or 2016, something like that. It might have been 2010. I can't remember. But This time around, it's electronic music. It's instrumental, sample based. This album is a little bit bolder, a little bit more focused than the last one. I don't know if I like it as much as the last one, though, to be honest. But it's still very, very good. Brash, techno beats, darker kind of drum and bass, electro soundscapes. You know, Jar's definitely my favorite electronic artist of the moment, and you know, he scores another home run with this album. Number 14 is a jam band entitled Orson Space Collective. You know, they release tons of stuff every year. This is the one album I listened to from them, one new release I listened to them, listened by them this year, Experiments in the Subconscious. That was a horrible sentence, and I can't seem to form it into, I not make words good. Some people have a way with words, and others just, you know, not have way. Anyways. Orson Space Collective, Experiments in the Subconscious. So basically, it's at the point where every Orson Space Collective album, when they release a new album, it's a given that it's going to place on my year-end list, and it's probably going to be high on the list. And sure enough, here it is. But it's more improvised, instrumental, space rock. You know, they don't really do anything different on each album, but their style of music is, you know, lends itself to a lot of variety within the structure of the music itself. So anyways, if you like that kind of jammy stuff, it's great. You'd like that one as well. Number 13 is another local band called Roy. This is their album Peace, Love, and Outer Space. I stumbled on these guys opening for Elephant Stone earlier this year again, and you know, their live show was crazy. It was eccentric. It was very weird, but very, very fun. They didn't seem to take themselves too seriously, which was enjoyable to watch. Anyways, this album, it's as good as modern day psych gets. It borrows heavily from the riff-filled, melodic yet experimental rock music of the past, but it still sounds vibrant and fresh today. I wrote in my notes here, it's guaranteed to strategically kidnap your mind grapes. So, I don't know why I use that expression a lot. It was said once on the TV show 30 Rock, and it just made me laugh, and now I say it way too often. It's kind of like my friend Tony and I, we started out kind of jokingly going, you know what I'm saying? After every sentence, you know, this is a great album, you know what I'm saying? And then before we knew it, now we say it all the time, and it's irritating, but we still do it to be funny. That's same with my mind grapes joke. Peace, Love, and Outer Space by Roy, number 13. Okay, number 12 is an artist with a great name, Vinyl Williams, he calls himself. The album is called Azure. I don't know, is this his third album, I think? I saw Vinyl Williams open for Temples a few years ago. I think it was Temples. More psych rock here, this time of the dream pop subgenre, presented with tempo changes, unusual chord progressions. It makes this one stand out a little bit more for me anyways. Its presentation is of a slightly more subdued vibe, admittedly, but it's got a sophisticated urgency that demands the listener to just let the sounds wash over him. I'm reading these, I wrote, this time I prepared a little bit more, so if I sound a little more scripted than usual, but these are still my words. This is still me, but it's me, you know, thinking ahead of time instead of thinking on the spot. Except for every time I say mind grapes, because that's all I got. When I think on the spot, it's just mind grapes and you know what I'm saying. But when I prepare ahead of time, yeah, you get this articulate beauty. Okay, number 11. Number 11, another ambient album, Steve Roach. It doesn't get more prolific than Steve Roach. The guy's released over 50 albums since 1982. This ambient and electronic composer, he felt inspired this year to create another beautiful album of minimalist, sequencer-based instrumental music. The album is called Tomorrow. This is my favorite ambient release of the year. Once again, it just, you know, it helped me fall asleep when I needed to sleep. It helped calm my nerves when I needed my nerves to be calmed. I'm making it sound like I was a nervous wreck this year. I really wasn't. I wasn't. A lot of people had it worse than me, but I don't know. This COVID, you know, living living in a city like Toronto during a kind of a semi-lockdown situation is brutal. Because the reason you moved to Toronto, because it's expensive, it's, you know, the reason you live downtown is because of all the stuff you can do. And now you can't do any of that stuff. So you're, you know, we live in a, you know, pretty tiny one bedroom apartment, which never bothered us before because, you know, we went out and did stuff all the time, and now we can't. And so anyways, but yeah, I'm happier than I let on. FYI, don't worry about me. If you're worried, don't worry about me. Okay, I'm okay. I'm okay. But yeah, Steve Roach tomorrow, number 11. Okay, let's go into the top 10 of the year 2020. Okay, this one's on a lot of lists, and rightfully so. Phoebe Bridgers, Punisher. What a fantastic album. You know, it's funny because it's the type of music that I don't gravitate to these days as much as I once did. And so my friend recommended it to me a while ago. Listened to it. It blew me away, but then I quickly forgot about it. Then I revisited it a little bit later, and I remember texting my friend and saying, I'm an idiot. Why didn't I dive into this earlier? It's amazing. And he just, you know, responded with an LOL. Then kind of forgot about it again. Then a few months later, I listened to it again. And I was like, Gary, why didn't you tell me about this album? And so he took screenshots of all my other texts where I had already told him this is an awesome album and said, Bob, do you remember anything you do in your life? And so, yeah, so anyways, I remember it now, and I did, you know, getting it on vinyl helps as well because, you know, I'm more apt to remember the stuff I listen to when I buy it. But man, what an amazing record. The song structure, the way it's laid out, the lyrics, which you know, I'm not a huge lyric person, but I don't. I really appreciate lyrics. I do when I'm listening to them. I just don't always pay attention to them as much as I should. But Bridgers' lyrics express darkness in a way that still somehow feels, you know, beautiful and hopeful. And then you couple that with such a powerful and moving musical score. I mean, this album, it feels like a cinematic experience, and I just love it. So Phoebe Bridgers' Punisher is at number 10. Number 9 is an album I'm waiting patiently to arrive in the mail, and it still hasn't, but it'll get here soon, I hope. It's an album entitled Source by Nubia Garcia. The London jazz scene is killing it these days, and Nubia Garcia has become another contributor to that fact. She has an amazing voice, but she's primarily an instrumentalist as well, and so this album mixes vocals and instrumentation. It's just beautiful. It's nothing short of exciting, weaving musical tales, melding jazz, soul, funk, and fusion. Just beautiful. Nubia Garcia, Source, at number 9. Number 8's another album I'm waiting for in the mail. I got an alert today that it'll get here. It's on its way. It's from Australia because you can't get this album around here. The band is called Big Yawn. The album is called No. It's their debut album. The band is from Melbourne, Australia. Probably my favorite electronic album of the year, although I don't know if I fully buy into that it's electronic music entirely, because it sounds a little more organic than that to me. It incorporates elements of krautrock, heavy low-end bass frequencies, dub. There's a touch of ambient jazz in there. It's an instrumental album, but it's outstanding. Probably my favorite. Yeah, I think it's my favorite instrumental album of the year. I guess as we get into the top 7, I'll be... No, it's not. It's not. There is another instrumental album coming up. But anyways, it's a great one. It's a great one. Number 7, this just came in the mail the other day, and I'm glad it's finally here. Oh my goodness. Leanne Lahaves' self-titled album. This is her 3rd album. But oh my goodness, is it ever beautiful. You know, usually I prefer it when an artist avoids the stripped down folky approach, just because I feel like it's become a bit of a cliche these days. You know, I find that, you know, I prefer, I like my music to sound large, I guess. But Leanne Lahaves does strip things down quite a bit for this album, and it just works. It works extremely well in her case. Her voice is a treasure that demands a listen. First of all, she's got such a beautiful voice. Lyrically, it's a powerful album. Again, like I say, I don't pay attention to lyrics as much as I should, but this album documents what was clearly a challenging time in her life. Obviously based on a relationship which at worst was abusive, but at best was just unfulfilling. And yeah, she is very, very honest and raw on this album, and it is just beautiful. Besides all of her original material, it also includes a fantastic cover of Radiohead's Weird Fishes that fits into the theme of the album very, very well. If you haven't heard this, and this is pretty accessible too, so if some of my choices are too weird for you, listen to this one because it's just phenomenal. Number 6. This is my favorite instrumental album of the year. It's another Australian band. Australia is killing it these days. What can I say? The Australian experimental jazz trio makes my year-end lists often, so there's not much to say I haven't said before. This is their album. The band is called The Necks. The album is called 3. And I guess this one, it's entitled 3 because this one contains 3 lengthy instrumental tracks as opposed to the single song format that they tend to favor the most these days, at least over the last decade or so. Slow, meditative, jazz, ambient jazz music. Just beautiful. Just beautiful. Their albums are always an experience for me. Like, they're more than just something I enjoy listening to. They're an experience for me. We're into the top 5, and this video is running very long, guys, as usual, because But anyways, number 5 is Elephant Stone, the album Hollow. This Montreal psych band, they hit it out of the park with this one, in my opinion. It's a post-apocalyptic concept album, but it contains a little something for everyone, from sitar-heavy yet accessible fuzz to 60s style pop jams. It doesn't sound out of place next to albums by the Zombies, the Pretty Things, or the Kinks. It's just a wonderful, wonderful album. I know I made it sound pretty eclectic, but I think it's fairly accessible. If you like 60s, pop music with just a touch of psych, I think you'll like this. This isn't the weird psych. This isn't the the kind of out there psych. This is pretty accessible. It's not too hard to enjoy. I think you'd really like this album. That's my number 5. My top 4 I've talked about on this channel before, so I actually won't need to spend a ton of time on these albums, but here we go. At number 4 is a collaboration. Tom Misch and Yusef Days. What Kind of Music is the name of the album. There's the, all of this stuff is on the, anyways. What Kind of Music. Funky, soulful guitar and violin work of Tom Misch meets the jazz funk percussion of Yusef Days. I really enjoy how the exceptionally smooth vocals are often juxtaposed with overly excitable, almost proggy instrumental interludes. This thing is immaculately produced. It just sounds wonderful. This is one, I think I mentioned in another video where I talked about this album. This is one that actually excels on vinyl. I noticed a huge difference between listening to this on vinyl and kind of streaming it. So that's my number 4. This album's appeared on many, many lists. It is the Fiona Apple, Fetch the Bolt Cutters. It's brilliant, and I love it as much as everybody else seems to love it. Possibly the most highly praised album of the year, but I find it reaps new rewards with every listen. There's no filler on this album, and there's no filler in Fiona Apple's career, really. She just kind of keeps cranking out just quality material, and every sound, beat, piano plunk, percussive pounce, noun, verb, and adjective is absolutely necessary on this album, and for some reason it just seems to fit the times that we're living in. I don't know why. I can't really explain why that is, but For me, it does. So Fiona Apple's Fetch, the Bolt Cutters is my number 3. Number 2 is another collaboration between two jazz legends, Kahil El-Zabar and David Murray. They join forces for this groove-based behemoth, a blend of live and studio material. This one takes John Coltrane as an influence and then embarks on a journey that's steeped in rhythm and Afrocentric percussion, creates a vibe that can be modal and trance-like at times. Just an outstanding album. Just beautiful. Beautiful. Jazz, definitely my favorite jazz release of the year. Which brings us to number 1. This is an odd choice, I know, but it's, for me personally, it's just the one that I just kept returning to, and it's the triumphant return of Aksak Mabul. This is the album Figures. You know, they're a Belgium art pop band that released a couple of albums in the late 70s, early 80s, and then kind of disappeared. The main person, you know, Aksak Mabul is the band name, but it's actually consists of Mark Hollander on all the instruments and his wife Veronique Vincent on vocals. Mark Hollander produced a lot of other albums and bands and stuff, and then just kind of released this. Just like their releases of the past, this one ain't going to be for everyone, but if you're on the lookout for something unique, as I always am, then this should do it. Unique, unusual instrumentation coupled with primarily French language vocals, but the hooks and melodies are there. You know, a bit like, it reminds me a bit of Stereolab, artists like that, so it's not that weird. If you like Stereolab, you might like this. But it's just a stunning and adventurous album that I just kind of kept returning to over and over again. Nobody's really talking about it, but what's interesting is I've seen it on I think 2 other lists, 2 other album lists, and that's it. But it was number 1 on both of those lists too. So I think, you know, most people either don't know it or don't like it, but the ones that do think it's the best album of the year. Anyways, I think it is too. So there you go. That's my top 30 albums of the year. That was a ridiculously long video. I apologize. But I will be back. The vinyl tag that's out there is intriguing me, so I think I might pipe in on that. Still trying to come up with some answers there. I'm still planning the REM ranking video one of these days. I'd still like to do that. And I have picked up a lot of stuff too, so I can do another spins and finds and whatever video. But we'll see how it goes. I film these videos when I feel like it. So I felt like it today and I did this one. We'll see where it goes from there. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and take care. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have a good 2021.